It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us. We were all going direct to heaven. We were all going direct the other way. So begins one of the most widely read works of English literature, A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. It is the story of a particular historical time. It is the story of our time. It is the story of every time. Each moment we live is the best of times and the worst of times, full of its own contradictions, surrounded by opposing forces. The Christ in the desert found himself among wild beasts and angels. We cannot help but feel the same. Wild beasts seem to surround us, with reports of cruelty becoming increasingly more horrific. There are times one has the impression that the world becomes more cruel by the day. In every part of the world, bloody massacres abound. Shooting rampages have become regular occurrences, even among our school children. In some places in the world, beheading captives has degenerated into burning them alive. Horrors reminiscent of our own not-so-distant Holy Inquisition have now returned to the world stage, complements of a very similar type of religious and political fundamentalism. And well might they, for in the words of Ilka Chase, it is usually when men are at their most religious that they behave with the least sense and the greatest cruelty. Wild beasts surround us. Yet it is an insult to the animals to call these people beasts. That is offensive to the beasts. Of all the animals, says Mark Twain, man is the only one that is cruel. He is the only one that inflicts pain for the pleasure of doing it. It is a trait that is not known to the higher animals. Nor should we for an instant believe that the torture and terror once used by the fanatical fundamentalist Catholic torturers had been neglected after the Church lost her power, until being taken up again by the equally fanatical fundamentalist torturers of our own day. The century we have recently finished was arguably more brutal than any other, with its plethora of terror, mass warfare, annihilations, assassinations, massacres, and genocides remembered and unremembered. Everyone knows of the horrors of the Holocaust, and indeed no one should ever forget. But countless other Holocausts go unremembered. Countless other martyrs go unsung. Who speaks now of the countless masses swallowed up in the Gulag, the millions starved to death in Stalin's artificially created famines? Who remembers the death camps, the death marches, the death squads of the innumerable places where no one was left to remember? No, the wild beasts have always surrounded us. They are part of us. Yet there are angels too in this desert we call life. And these angels take us by surprise as much as the wild beasts. We encounter them in places we least expect. We find wings on shoulders that seemed the least likely to support them. The more hellish the world, the more angels come into view, spreading their wings, spreading their love, secretly, quietly, wonderfully. Sometimes they wear a nurse's uniform in a house of misery and pain. Sometimes the uniform of a fellow inmate in a prison of despair. Sometimes these God-sent angels wear no uniform at all to distinguish them from the rest of suffering humanity, no wings to lift them higher than their fellow creatures, but only hands with which to heal us and feet with which to walk with us the most painful steps of life. All God's angels come to us disguised, sings the poet James Russell Lowell. Perhaps you have seen one today. Perhaps you have been one today. It is the best of times. It is the worst of times. It is the only time there is. In the desert of life, we live among wild beasts and angels. I know it for certain, for as in every single one of us, there is something of both in me.